SCP-054 is called the Water Nymph, and I'm not gonna lie, she looked kind of hot. Or cool, however you want to say. Look, I can make some inappropriate jokes about women and being wet and stuff, but that's not... I'm not gonna go there. What I am gonna say is that all the video games I've played and Dungeons and Dragons, stories, pictures of mythical creatures, water elementals are what I think of when I see this. And there, a lot of times they're in female form, but honestly, they can appear shapeless and like men. There's different creatures. For the most part, this reminded me of a water elemental when I saw it. But apparently it's going to be different. It's in the SCP universe, and it's by Dr. Bob. We're going to react to it today, guys. Make sure to sub to Dr. Bob's channel. Sub to me if you like reaction channels. And let's get into this animation.
Who are you talking to?
Is he peeing?
The young boy spins
around.
Oh,
he has his hands like this. I thought he was peeing.
Behind him. The boy seems nervous and hesitant to answer. But after being asked again, he admits to his father that he was talking to the lady in the fountain.
Yeah,
the boy's
like the lady
father
in the lake.
Confused.
The
lady in the fountain. That's right. The boy explains that she is nice, just like Mom.
She's a nymph.
He thinks the woman in the fountain may even be his mom.
Is she...
The father sighs. He takes the boy's hand and leads him back inside the house, where the father is hosting a small get-together. One of the father's guests asks if things are okay, and he tells her that everything is fine. He's just worried about his son. It has been a very difficult year following the death of his wife. He tells her that he's afraid he might be developing behavioral issues as he watches the boy staring out the window at the fountain in their backyard.
That's rough.
Later that week in school, the children are supposed to be drawing pictures of their families. The teacher moves from child to child, checking on their progress, and stops at the boy. She wants to know what he's working on. The boy explains that it is a drawing of him, his dad, and his mom who lives in the fountain. The teacher doesn't understand. His mom lives in the fountain? That's right, the boy tells her.
He's telling
the fountain
everybody.
In their backyard was her favorite place in the whole world.
He's seen her a lot.
His mother had told him that it was a magical place and was the reason they bought the house. After she died, he heard a voice coming from the fountain.
Maybe the
sound
mom
like his mom
was right.
But he knows it's her. She lives in the fountain now. The father thanks the teacher for calling and promises that he'll talk to his son. He's very sorry that the other children are frightened by the stories about a woman in their fountain, and he's going to make sure this whole business comes to an end for good.
Okay.
That night, as he is putting the boy to bed, he tells him that he knows he misses his mom, but he needs to stop with all of these claims about a woman in the fountain.
Right.
And as much as he misses her and wishes that his mother would come back, he needs to realize that she's gone and not coming back.
Man, that's a
The father kisses the boy on the forehead and tells him one more time that there will be no more stories out of bed, creeps to his bedroom window that looks down on their backyard, and stares at the fountain.